We're just doing life. We don't realize that unless we're bringing it full out with love in our heart, with an intention to contribute, make a difference, shine our light as brightly as we can on others as well as ourselves.
Welcome to Fundamentally Unstoppable, the podcast where we break barriers, build unstoppable lives. I'm Jason Caras, your guide to unlocking potential through raw, real talk on personal and professional development, leadership, entrepreneurship, faith, family, health, and more. Inspired by my book, Fundamentally Unstoppable, Embracing the Core of Continuous Growth. Each episode dives into practical strategies and stories to help you transform, triumph, and thrive. Let's get unstoppable together. Today, we are thrilled to welcome Mr. Michael Nitti to the podcast, a master coach, transformational leader, and the founder of Intention Quest. With years as Tony Robbins' #1 coach, Michael has empowered countless individuals, from executives to everyday dreamers, to break through barriers and live with purpose. Through his unique approach at Intention Quest, he's redefining what it means to live intentionally, one of my favorite subjects, helping people align their actions with the deepest goals. Get ready for an episode packed with insights, practical tools, and the kind of energy that sparks real change. Michael, welcome to the show.
Thank you, Mr. Jason. It's a privilege to be here.
Oh, man, I got to tell you, the way I read that, I feel like Michael Buffer during a...
That was very beautifully done.
Thank you so much for being
here.
here.
I'll tell you there, you don't need any coaching at all. That's good. There you go.
Well, I got to tell you, man, I have not felt good for a week. I've been sleeping every day. Like I'm fighting something off. And when this was coming up, I said, there's no way I'm going to miss this. So I arrived, the self-limiting little voice in my head was like, oh, you should reschedule. No, we're not going to do that. So I'm going to just, power through this. But anyway, thank you, Michael. Just for our listeners, I got the beautiful opportunity to get acquainted with Michael through my late best friend, Mr. Frank Clark, also known as Mr. Orange. And Frank and Michael became good friends. And then also, Michael, I reached out to Michael as I'm embarking on my coaching career. And Michael's a coach. He's the #1 coach for Tony Robbins. I mean, you can't get any better than this. And I just asked him for some advice and, because, what to do, how should I do this? How much should I charge? All this stuff. And he was just gracious to give me some direction. And it's such an honor to have you on here, bro. I'm just telling you, I'm just so excited. Thank you so much.
Well, it's a privilege. It really, truly is. I mean, anything I can do, especially anyway. I mean, I know of you and we've talked, so I understand what you're into and what you're doing and what you're creating. And zero doubt it's going to be successful. But also as mutual friends of the Orange Man, it's a privilege. So
yeah, the Orange Man. I love it. Well, let's get, I put together a bunch of questions. We probably won't have time for all of them, but, I'm just so curious about so many things. Let me start with this one. You spent years as Tony Robbins' #1 coach. What do you think is the most transformative lesson that you learned working so closely with him? How did it shape what you're doing here in your approach with Intention Quest?
Well, so first of all, I've been coaching for almost 40 years. So long before I met Tony or even knew Tony existed, I was doing what used to be called the S training, the landmark forum back in 1980. After personal issues and challenges, I didn't even know self-help existed. I was a wild and crazy 21, 22-year-old, just living life. And me and my best friend were just killing it and having it. And then I ended up working for a defense contractor and just thought I was just catching me out, and it was all good. And I met a young lady, and my buddy and me were best friends. And to make a long story short, he was married to the high school homecoming queen, and I thought his life was great. Mine was going to be great. I'd met this young lady, and we ended up getting married, and it was wonderful. And she already had a daughter, and we made another new daughter together, and life was great. I didn't know my best friend was not having a great life. I had no clue. And I kept telling him how great my life was, and he knew my wife. And long story short, he ended up stealing her away.
Why? Why wasn't seeing that coming?
Yeah, I didn't see that coming. That's not what best friend description usually is. But anyway, it just crushed me, and it was all public because we were all in the same company, and I was just a mess. For 30 days, I was contemplating suicide. I felt terrible. The whole world knew. And one day, our chief engineer came to me, and he was super smart, but he was like a weird person. I wasn't really that close with him, but he came to me with all kind of compassion. He goes, "Look, I know what you're going through. I just did this course, and it's phenomenal. It'll you need to go do this course. You're gonna. It's." And I'm going, "What is a course? First of all, I had no idea about self help or anything else, and it was called the S training." And it sounded intriguing. And this guy was completely different than I'd ever seen him before, so I was intrigued. And there was an introductory seminar that very night. He invited me. I didn't want to act like I was interested, of course, but I did end up going. And the two people leading it were like, I was blown away. I had never heard of such a thing. And I put myself in the course. I did the S training. I was in Cleveland, Ohio. I drove to Pittsburgh and did the S training, and it completely changed my life. I mean, really, in one course. And I got turned on to the degree that I said, this is for me. And I became involved with them. I became a coach for them back in 1983, doing all of their courses all over the country. And I was leading one of their top programs. And this was within 2 years of being suicidal.
Wow.
And I just met all kind of people in that course. And one of them was an attorney in Canton, Ohio, who was telling me now about Tony Robbins. You think this is good stuff? There's a guy out in California. He's walking on fire. He's on fire. He's amazing. And I go, well, now S training wasn't about that. There wasn't any motivation and real outrageous doing things and walking on fire and all that kind of good stuff. And I wasn't opposed to anything that was, expanding human consciousness. And he went out there and he fell in love with Tony, and he became a trainer for Tony. And this is all in the late 80s, mid 80s or late 80s. And he invited me to come see Tony and all this stuff. And I wasn't so much opposed to it as I was to just have no clue. And I didn't think I needed it. And so after a while, he kept coming to me and saying, look, I'm moving up in this organization. Tony actually wants me to come and be an executive for him, because he was an attorney in Canton. He did never, and it was like amazing. And I'm like, well, Sam, go for it. I mean, this is phenomenal stuff. I hate to see you leave snowy Canton for San Diego, but I'm sure you'll probably enjoy it soon enough. But anyway, he became Tony's top guy, and we talked once in a while. But after that, he was so busy helping Tony build the business up into the 90s. We hardly ever talked. So finally, one day, I'm home in Ohio and just doing my thing. And I come home with my wife, and there's a message on the machine. I hit the button. It says, Niti, Sam Georges, call me. And I hadn't talked to him for 6 years. But I looked at my wife, and I said, honey, we're moving to San Diego.
Oh, my God. Wow.
I just intuitively knew that I was about to go work with this Tony Robbins guy. And sure enough, I did. I got out there. We gave it 30 days, fell in love with everything about him, the company, and everything else. And I'm not stupid. So I spent the time in Cleveland and the little shut up I was doing there. And I ended up working for Tony in 97. And then and was immediately a member of his executive team. I was running operations. I was doing something similar back in Ohio. And it just grew from there. And in about 2000 is when we started the coaching division. And because I was already a coach, I was part of the team that created the coaching division. And by 2005, I was coaching otherwise with Tony. And he said, we don't need you to be an executive anymore. You just become one of our top coaches. And that's what I did. So, and at that point, I've been coaching for so long, incorporating Tony's philosophies and strategies for coaching that were a little bit different than mine, but I was using them anyway intuitively. I became his top coach. So, and shortly after that, he started assigning me all of his top clients. And I went from just regular people in regular life, even though some of them were higher end people, executives and stuff like that. Now I'm working with Tony Robbins people. I'm working with people running $12 billion hedge funds. I'm working with people that are
Right.
celebrities and people
Right.
and I mean, just some of the most amazing people everywhere. And he's assigning all the top tier people to me personally, and it was just a privilege, and it was wonderful. So,
It's incredible. We talk about just coaching. So we figure that once we get out of high school or college, we're done with coaches, right?
yeah.
But what people don't realize is, let's say you get a trainer, personal trainer. You always end up working out harder when you're with your trainer. You end up getting better gains because someone's holding you accountable. You're getting some really good advice and being guided. And, I think just back in, the 80s, 90s, whatever, that somehow somebody made it a bad word to be, for self-help, personal development. And it's very much back in, but, and people are realizing that a coach is the difference between mediocrity and greatness. I mean, and people don't realize, well, what's a life coach? Well, or a business coach. And there are people that have seen the movie before. They might not know it all, but there's someone to bounce ideas off of. They have a lot of wisdom because they've seen so many situations with people and human drama unfold. They have a lot to add. But, I just find it kind of crazy that more people don't do coaching. And I got to tell you the reason why I do it. I did my very first speech when I was 17 years old, and it was to a group of kids in detention center. And I had been arrested 9 times before I was 17 years old. And at 17, I went to go see Jim Rohn and do a speech. And I waited in that long line to shake his hand. And I just looked him in the eyes and I said, I'm going to do this one day.
So cool.
And after my first speech, I sat in the car and I thought, my God, I love this so much. You're pouring your heart out. All you're doing, you're helping, right? But I didn't make that decision to do that. Instead, I followed the dollar in many different industries. I had 12 different companies, lost everything 3 times. And now I come full circle to my day consists of dreaming up ways to help my clients, help them change their life, help them elevate their business. So you've been doing this for so long. I mean, if you don't have fulfillment, personal fulfillment for all this beautiful force for good that you are over these 40 years, then you're not alive. But what a beautiful job you do, and what a force for good you are. I think that's amazing.
Well,
Wow.
it's a privilege, and what it is like, as you know, most. It's funny. The people that come from coaching are not broken people. They're people that are already successful or doing something in life, but one aspect of their life isn't working, or they're not able to apply it across the board, and they're making a whole bunch of money, but their relationships falling apart, or they're just not always as happy as they should be given what's going on. They just got something going on, and so what it is it's what I came up with early on during my epiphany and my whole breakthrough in my life was the fact that there had to be something stopping us from bringing it all the time. Because if we're bringing it sometimes and we're being successful, why aren't we bringing all the time? And that's when I discovered during my epiphany that there were only 2 ways of showing up in life. You're either showing up on purpose or you're not.
Wow.
And when you're not, you don't realize you've shifted out of being on purpose, playing on the top of your game, in reinventing yourself in the moment, showing up with an intention to contribute, make a difference, do what you're doing at a high level, including your empathy and compassion for others and coaching them and teaching them, which we do intuitively when we're a leader. But we're only doing it when we're doing that, and we don't even know that how we're doing it or why we're doing it, but we know we're doing it. It's only then when we stop doing that and something causes us to stop it or distracts us from it that we realize that we're not there, and we don't know how to get it back until we get it back by either accident or we have to, or the meeting starts or whatever it is, and you're back into your element. And the difference is there's 2 ways of showing up. You and I are either showing up intentionally and on purpose, but because we say so, we think it just started again because we're passionate about what just happened, or we better fix it, or we're in trouble, or whatever. But something causes us to show up on purpose. We access that part of us that is, with an intention for the greater good to make things happen. Not ego, not ego. There's a little bit of ego attached to some people who are big leaders because they know I'm in front of the room and I'm good at what I'm doing. But
Right.
they aren't. That's not usually the where the light is coming from in that moment. It's an intention to make a difference. It's an intention to show up at the top of your game. Or if we're not showing up that way, it's because we've fallen into the second way of showing up, known as reaction.
Yeah.
So there are only two ways of showing up in life. You're either showing up on purpose or you fall and prey to reaction. And reaction is really nothing more than allowing your ego to take over. Your fears, your concerns, what isn't working in your life, and you get sucked into a place where you're just getting by. And then by chance or hope, or just because you have to run the meeting and people are sitting there listening to you, or whatever it might be, or you got to fix the thing, or your company does the pieces, you become intentional again. But it's not like you have control over the switch and you just wish you did because you're back into reaction when something happens you don't like or whatever, and you're in reaction. So what I did is come up with a way to make sure I could coach people and teach people how to, first of all, recognize it, and then be able to intentionally shift back into intention and not make reaction wrong. And what I do is I actually teach them why they even come up, why that even occurs. And the truth is, it's because we are human animals. We're human animals. So the natural state of humanity is our animalistic tendencies, okay? We are naturally prone to be on the lookout for what could harm us. We're animals. Little animal walking through the forest. It's doing okay. It's eating some food. It's finding some things. It's doing all that stuff. Then all of a sudden it hears a noise, right?
Right.
What the hell was that? What was that? Well, it's not what the hell was that. Maybe that's something I can mate with. It's what the hell was that? That could probably eat me.
Right.
It goes into fear mode, reaction mode, and it just freezes up. You've seen it. And then if it hears the second noise, it's out of there. It doesn't stick around to say, well, maybe it's something that, no, it's gone. So it's natural to go into reaction. Okay, it just is. It's human nature to go into reaction and typically stay there until there's some reason to shift back into a strong intention. We may not be in fear anymore. We may have stopped running and realized it was just a couple of squirrels playing in the leaves and there's nothing to be afraid of. But in life, we stick around in reaction until there's some reason to shift back into intention. And mostly one of the reasons isn't because we even know that exists. We're just doing life. We don't realize that unless we're bringing it full out with love in our heart, with an intention to contribute, make a difference, shine our light as brightly as we can on others as well as ourselves. Otherwise, we're shining our light because it's like, look at me, which is,
look at me.
There's still success in that, but now that's ego. Okay?
But not a lot of satisfaction.
Not a lot of satisfaction. Well, if you're an egotist, there is.
Yeah, I guess.
Are a narcissist, then it's all about you anyway. Yeah. And it's funny, narcissists are usually very happy, or at least they think they are. And especially if they've made a lot of money, they don't care about anything else. And I'm not being judgmental. It's just that it's not the highest way of living. Okay. But you're not going to get too many narcissists to come to coaching because I don't see there's anything wrong.
Right.
So, wow. But the average human being who is looking to improve and become something more than they already are, no matter who they are, they want to know, they know there's things where they're bringing the magic some places, but not everywhere, and they don't know how to do that. And so basically as a coach, what you're doing is I'm just teaching them the fundamentals underneath of human nature so they can then become masters themselves. So that's what it's all about.
I love that. So one of the things that the light bulb went off for me around this because I had on my vision board, which was something I looked at every day and how it's what framed up my intention to go out into the world. So before I go out into the world, I don't want to be blown around by the winds. I want to set my sail. And I had this picture of an old jalopy truck, and it said, "Got patience," right? And it's because, I live in Tampa, Florida, and it's a big melting pot of drivers from all around the country. And it's weirdly, no one knows how to drive or have any etiquette in driving or know the rules of the road. And it's an active thing to not have anger and road rage as you're driving around. So, and I would look at it and say, okay, because you don't get any good ideas when you're in that state. You're flushing your body with cortisol, right? So I realized it was a self-limiting thing. So I said, I don't want this to happen anymore. Well, I'm driving one day and I get cut off and I snap. I'm like, oh. So I start like passing cars, putting people's lives in danger, my life in danger. I am so angry. I'm sweating. My heart is pounding. And I get up to this car and I look over and there's a girl and she's seat dancing and singing. She's like, right? She has no idea what I just went through, right? And then as soon as I saw her, I looked at her. I go, "You fool!" And I just started laughing at myself. I go, "Dude, you have this on your vision board. You went out reactionary. You were reactionary today. You didn't proactively go out into the world saying, 'This is the man I want to be.'" And the other thing I'll add to what you said, which was it kind of made me think while you were saying it. You know, put me in, God. That's what I say every day. Like, God, put me in. Show me someone who needs help today. I don't care if it's the Uber driver or the guy at the 7-Eleven. And when you have that, I think the universe provides. People just permeate and they come to you, especially when in need. And I love this. I love what we're doing together.
Yeah.
As far as
It's about living on purpose. And when you are living on purpose, you're going to do great. You're going to be for the greater good. You just are. I mean, I can't walk through a grocery store without seeing the guy in the aisle stocking the shelves. And I already know that if in some way I'm going to be interacting with him, he's going to feel better about himself after 30 seconds of talking to me than not. Now, it's not like I'm blowing smoke up his butt,
right.
but I'll ask him where something is. I said, "Hey, dude, if you don't mind, my wife set me up for the so-and-so. Where the hell is that?" He goes, "Oh, aisle 4, halfway down on the right." He's going to, and I go, "Damn, do you know where every item is in this entire store?" He goes, "Just about." I go, "You're a genius."
Isn't that beautiful?
Leaving him with something. Now, it sounds like, well, that's a strategy for success, or are you doing that to be a nice guy? No, why would I not?
Right.
So when you own yourself at a high level and all you're up to is making a difference and contributing, you're going to do those things. You're going to do it everywhere and anywhere because it's just being about on purpose. You don't, why would you have a purpose other than playing at a higher level and inspiring and contributing? Why would there be another purpose? No, the purpose, make a lot of money, get a better house, do whatever you do. Well, of course. But even you do that on purpose. We just bought a new house. As you know, I was living out by you in the Tampa area, and we had moved from.
Get scared away by a couple hurricanes. Huh?
Yeah, we moved from Las Vegas thinking it was going to be great to be by an ocean again, but the ocean came with hurricanes. And so after 3 of those suckers, we have now just moved back to Vegas, as you know, within the last 4 months. And so, and that's what life brings. But anyway.
So, we talk about, you just said higher level, level up, next level. I think, people who are pursuing that, whether it's spiritual, whether it's with their romance, their relationships, their family, their work, their entrepreneurship, whatever it is, it's just the urge to level up comes with something that has to be done consistently. And, the people that go to these Tony Robbins seminars and the people that are coached and so forth, it reminds me of something Jim Rohn said a long time ago. He says he was doing a seminar and this lady asked the question. She said, "Mr. Rohn, how is it that you're just so positive and motivated all the time?" And he goes, "Well, I guess it's probably got something to do that I attend all these seminars." He's running the seminar, but still, and it's just keeping it in its forefront. And then, earlier, you've coached some of the top people in the world, some of the most famous people in the world. I had one of my questions was, you've coached these kinds of people. Are there universal traits that you've noticed for people that, achieve breakthrough success? What makes, the people that come to you and get coached, what differentiates the ones that actually, and we can define success, but let's call success moving the needle and up-leveling their life in some level. But what do you feel is like some of the traits that get them there, or that help them?
Well, first of all, it's going to be intentional versus then reaction. I'm not walking around in reaction all the time. Now, are the human beings, human animals, they fall into reaction at time to time. Something didn't go their way, they're late for a meeting or whatever it is, and they fall into, but they catch themselves and they know that's not going to get them anywhere. So obviously, the people who are more successful are the ones that we recognize, whether it's some celebrity or someone we know. They bring a higher intention to the party. They're still intentional, but they also have higher goals. There's something that they want to achieve, but it's not just wanting to achieve it. There's another energy called refusing not to. So it's just like, there's no way. It's like, well, I'm close, but maybe this is where I settle. but there is no settling. There's no settling. And then they also bring an energy of engaging, of inclusion, of sharing it with people. Every once in a while, you do hear about a celebrity or somebody who plays at the highest level that people don't even want to hang out with that person. They're just full of themselves. And there are some narcissists and people in life that have made it to the top of places where it's because they run something or they own it or whatever it might be. But for the most part, your people playing at a higher level, they are doing that on purpose, and they've just got a high level of desire to be something great. But when I'm working with those people, they invariably have another area, though, where it's not so great. And oftentimes it's the relationship. So it's going to be that usually. Sometimes maybe it's their health and they're not in the best shape as they possibly could be. But there's a lack of intention there because anybody can join a gym or anybody can get a personal trainer or whatever it is. But these other things, the relationship stuff, that's why a lot of my work is with relationships. So man, woman stuff, male, female stuff, although I work with, gay people, but it's about relationship. But what we do is we have them take a look at what it is that causes them to be successful where they are successful, where it seems like it's just an of course for them. Like there's not even anything they need to do other than just do what they do. But then there's probably a thought about the relationship where it's like, I had no clue. All we do is end up fighting. I don't understand why she or he is doing these things. And so I do a lot of work with relationships with the inherent underlying energies between men and women when it's like that. So we get them to see what's going on there. A lot of natural dishonor and disrespect for the feminine on the planet, just in different cultures more than not. But it's typically one of the sources of challenges where that inherent disrespect for the feminine is just worldwide. It just is. It's been fixed and it's not there anymore. Or, there's some cultures where you got to wear a where you just it's not good. But no, right. It's in the culture, and so and then of course women are reacting to that themselves, so they don't even realize they are. They're thinking, there's some men that are jerks, but not every man is, and it's all good, and I'm okay. Well, no, because you're still seeing what's wrong with your husband more than you see what's right. And that's inherently there for some reason. So we get people to take a look at what their inherent stuff is, what they grew up with, why they have those beliefs and what it is. And usually we can get them to come up with, ascend to a place where they are seeing everything from that perspective of how can I contribute? How can I cause something to be better rather than being a little bit in reaction all the time to whatever happens? And then also forgiving, because we are still, men and women in relationship are still, somehow reacting to something that they think should be a different way, or there should be more of this, or there should be whatever there is. So once again, it's always looking at intention and reaction and replacing reaction with intention. So,
I find that so few relationships actually have transparency. I feel like there's always underlying possessive jealousy. And you just can't talk, like there's so many people that just can't talk to their one like it's their best friend. I was very lucky to meet my best friend, my wife, Duke, and she, my very first date, the very first date, I was like, listen, I have bipolar disorder. Her friends were like, run, but she just could not believe my candor and transparency. And, that's what I try to coach couples to have unprecedented transparency, because there's no other way to live. What do you want to fake it for? Why are you going to hide the person you are?
No.
And you'll find that most people are kind of open to it if you just open up the gates,
Why would it be any other way? But it is for too many people. And then, of course, the resentments grow, and and once the resentments are there, those are tough to get away, because it's the other person is the reason why there's a resentment, not you. You didn't do anything. So,
right.
It's on the women's side too. So, yeah, so it's necessary to go back to, what it is. And then sometimes there's just personal challenges with either the man or the woman or whoever's in the relationship. And then they've got things going on, and then they fall prey to their own living in reaction to those things, because usually that's what's going on. Somebody is living in reaction to whatever's going on. It's just not that it's going on. they're living in reaction to it, and their mind is now making it wrong, blaming themselves, blaming the other person. So there's something other than an intention to wake up in the morning and have it be nothing but love and giving and contribution and celebrating. And how can we make that's been displaced by reaction.
Yeah.
So
Yeah. There's another thing that I thought I'd bring up to you because, Tony Robbins talks a lot about the human needs. And, a relationship with a lover is a lot like a relationship with an entrepreneur and his employees in a lot of ways. I always took those human needs as the same type of, I said, this is, instead of my human needs, the organization and your people have these human needs. They need to have certainty, right? They need to feel significant, so all of those human needs. And that's a relationship as well, right? A relationship with an employer, an employee, you can call them colleagues, whatever, but in business, relationships also scream for transparency and being intentional. I just did a podcast about, like when someone says, like, why would I help that person? I'm not getting anything out of it. Like, whoa. First of all, what is it that you do here again? Because you don't work here anymore. What an awful mindset.
Yeah.
So relationships, and I find it
mindset, ego-driven mindset, unfortunately.
I guess it is, right? Yeah.
All about.
By the way, I'm a firewalker too. I ended up walking on fire at one of Tony's seminars. That was pretty awesome. I actually had a cut foot and a broken toe. And I went the whole day saying I wasn't going to do it. And then last minute, because of my broken foot and my cut, right? And I said, you know what, last minute, I was like, I'm doing it. And it was insane to walk across 12 feet of hot cinders. Oh my God.
Well, that's an important, but remember, that's such state you bring to the party. If you've done the firewalk, you know what it is. It's a metaphor. And it causes people to know that you need to be intentional. You need to bring something higher than just fear of the fire to the party and all that good stuff. And they have them go through 2 steps to get into state and get in a good state where you can go, yes, yes, yeah. And you're so, but the truth is, when you know that you can create that without anything having to come from a place of that it's not there to there, and you just bring it. So at the end of all the firewalks, at the end of the running all the UPWs and everything I did as an executive with Tony, I was at all the events. I would go out at the end of the day and then on my own, I would just come out and run across the fire. So
really,
wow. Well, I got to get in state, and I better do. Why would I not be in state? I'm always in state. So now I'm a human being. Do I go into reaction at times for whatever it might be or whatever might happen? Yeah, but for a split second, because why would I stay in a reactive state when I know perfectly well that I have it within me to shift to an intentional state in every single moment. So, but the firewalk is a metaphor for that. But remember, you also talk about the 6 human needs. It's important to know in a relationship that we have different needs. There's also different personality models. Okay, if you're familiar with the DISC or the Myers-Briggs, it's important to understand how you became who you became growing up.
Right.
I tell people stories. There's a personality trait where somebody's a really strong-willed person, and we think, well, they're just like they're made to be the boss in life, I guess. And there's other people that are more into the numbers game, and they're going to be more like the CFO because they're very detail oriented and they cross all the T's and dot all the I's. Well, those are personality traits, and they get evolved at a very early age. So I like to tell a story about, like, there's maybe 2 twins, 4 or 5 years old is all. And they're home one day, and the father is upstairs, and he's getting ready for a business trip. And suddenly he's yelling, he's downstairs. He goes, honey, where's my suitcase? You said the suitcase was going to be packed. I got to get to the airport. And he comes down, he's kind of yelling at her, and the 2 twins are watching them go. And she goes, oh my God, I'm sorry, I forgot. I'll get up there and get it right away. And she runs upstairs, and she does it right away. But he's kind of yelling at her, and he's frustrated, not killing her or anything. But he's a little over the top, not in a good way with her, right? And she goes up and then comes down, and you got the 2 twins looking back and forth at them fighting, and one of the twins, same nothing. He goes, looks at his dad, and the wife just jumped too. She got it done, and she knows his dad does that in business. He makes things happen, and he's thinking, I want to be just like my dad. But then the other twin, the other little boy, is sitting there going, God, my dad didn't have to do that to my wife. My mother. She's crying, she's upset, and she just forgot. God, I don't want to be like my dad. So they saw the same thing, and one became somebody who is now driven and dynamic and a strong-willed person, doesn't put up with any shit, and the other person makes that kind of wrong and now has more empathy and understanding and kindness. Not that ever both of them can't do that from time to time in different ways, but the point
Right.
is, our personalities get evolved at a very young age. We become who we are with respect to the Myers-Briggs, the DISC, or our models, and we are destined to become either a CFO or a CEO or a worker bee or whatever it might be, based on whether we have a strong personality like a high I and the DISC,
Right.
and or we're somebody who's meek and calm and would never speak in front of a room. None of it's right or wrong, but to understand how those things got evolved, understand who you are and what it means to you, and that you can actually break free of that when you need to and become something more, is again something between reaction and intention. So there's stuff we do in coaching that causes people to be able to see why it is that they become who they are and what they are, and that there's room to grow and become something more rather than, well, this is just the way I am. So it's just interesting stuff. There's so much you can do with coaching that opens people's eyes to things that they've never considered before.
God, man, you're amazing. You're really just incredible. That's why you are who you are and where you are in your life. It's just such an honor to have you on this. I mean, I just hope everybody, when I was telling people about what I was doing, I was having Tony Robbins, #1 coach. Like, this guy's amazing, right? And they're like, but he's a coach, he's a competitor. I'm like, dude, are you kidding me? He's a mentor, #1. And #2, I'm not doing this for the money. I'm doing this to help people. So if there's people out there that this resonates, with you, I want you to be able to reach out to Michael Nitti and get coaching. And before we conclude our call, I'm going to have you, just do a shout out as to how people get in touch with you. So before we do that, though, one question I think is kind of a cool question to ask anybody. But like, what would one piece of advice be to your younger self if you got to go back in time and whisper in your ear? One piece of advice before you started your career. I feel like you've had such a successful career, but I mean, just in general, I mean, is there something that might resonate for, just the average person that, if they were to know something early on, wouldn't that be nice?
Oh, it would be nice. But the good news is, even before I became a coach, and even when my best friend ran away with my wife, and all these things happened, like happen in life to all people, um, I was all. It was basically I was a good person. I never wanted to do anything bad to anybody. I may have been a little bit filled with, overly confident perhaps. I was a strong guy. I was into masculine stuff, fast cars, and out in the, shooting things and all kind of stuff. I'm that old and but I'm still a good person. So, I think the one thing that people need to know is that there is no reason not to be a good person. You know, contribute, make a difference, shine your light on others. And I talk about intention and reaction. And when you're in reaction, you typically don't feel like doing that. You got something not going on right in your life. You're trying to fix it. You're not having a good day.
Right.
You'll say, sure, if I was having a good day, I would do that then. Well, it's the other way around. When you're not having a good day, you always have the ability to shine your light on others. You just do. You always have the ability to contribute, make a difference, do something for somebody else, and certainly do something for yourself. But my point is, we always have the ability to catch ourselves in reaction and shift back into an intentional state. And that usually includes doing something for others or to expand your business, to cause somebody else to feel better, whatever it would be. So really, that's it. That's not even, that's just common sense to me. I mean, it's not even coaching, but what we do in coaching is look at what's in the way of people being that way and having that disappear so that they now become who they were put here to be.
What a beautiful thing. You are a force for good. I am so grateful that you took some time to do this with me today.
Thank you.
And I hope you'll come back. I think this,
Well, we get into the specifics at some point, because there is some good stuff about the specifics and things like that, and even just whether we do it on here or not. But just talk about, because again, but I'm also always learning, because I've coached so many amazing people. I mean, some of the world-class famous celebrities. I mean, I've got to appear on national television as a master. I mean, I'm just a guy, but it just all went in the right direction because of who I met and who I've coached, and it's just crazy. So, but again, just
yeah. So we'll have you back. We'll get more specific, maybe. I like that. Well, why don't you tell people how they can get in touch with you?
But, obviously, I've got my website, which is intentionquest.com, but I really don't use that much. That's something that's in the background. And, I'm out there on social media, and I'm on Instagram, and I'm on Facebook. So on Facebook, I'm Michael A. Nitti. And on Instagram, I'm Coach Nitti. So that's the best place. And I put stuff out there every day for free. I put meaningful,
yes, you do. I see it.
Teachings out there every day for free. So
you do, and that was what drove me to reach out to you, because I was like, he shows up every day. Every day there's a beautiful post. It's not just some little blurb. It's very well thought out, and it's more than just a couple lines.
Yeah. Well, it's all grown out of my book. I do have 2 books. I do have The Trophy Effect, and I have Mastery, The Art of Living on Purpose. And if you're not interested in coming and coach with me, I do recommend you read the books, because those are the books that will cause you to become intentional versus reactive and a master at everything you do. So,
and I believe you have those listed on your website too, right?
Yeah, they should be. But again, mostly you'll find out more about that stuff on my Facebook.
On your social media. Yeah, good. All right. Well, so again, thank you so much. I hope, for the listeners out there, I hope you got something out of it. I certainly got a bunch of nuggets. We're all coachable, living intentionally. Don't be reactionary. And tune into more of these podcasts. If you like what you see, please like, share, and thank you for your time.